Tonight, renewed calls for action to reduce ambulance ramping. Also tonight, Anthony Albanese wades into the debate over salmon farming in Macquarie Harbour. Australia's Foreign Minister holds talks with the Israeli government and reducing barriers to help during menopause. Good evening, Guy Stayner with ABC News. More than 130 people have died within a day of being ramped at a Tasmanian hospital since 2018. The new figures have amplified calls for an urgent solution to ambulance ramping. But the Tasmanian government has accused its political opponents of misrepresenting the data.
2 weeks ago, Belinda O'Toole's 97-year-old grandmother Nancy spent 4 hours ramped at the Northwest Regional Hospital.
She was in a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort, so being stuck on a bed in a waiting room basically, it was very distressing.
Belinda believes that experience has contributed to a rapid decline in her grandmother's health, as she also suffers from dementia.
Since that time, she hasn't behaved normally. She's had that functioning decline.
More than 21,000 patients have experienced ramping in Tasmania over the past 8 years. Research has found transfer of care delays can increase a patient's risk of dying within a month.
It's very clear from research in Victoria that after 17 minutes, every minute after that, there's an increased risk of harm.
Data given to a parliamentary ramping inquiry shows that between 2018 and 2023, 136 people have died in Tasmanian hospitals in the 24 hours after being ramped for at least 30 minutes. In the 12 months to July, 44 people died, almost one per week.
What we're seeing is a direct relationship between the increase of ramping in Tasmania, the length of stay on the ramp, and the increase in people who are dying shortly afterwards. You cannot hide the data.
The state government says the data is being misrepresented.
You cannot take two different sets of data, join them together and then have an unsubstantiated outcome.
Tasmania's Department of Health says there's no causal link between ramping and later deaths. It says while the number of patients being transferred to hospital by ambulance has increased, there hasn't been a rise in the number of safety reports linked to ramping. But the state's Health and Community Services Union says the figures reflect what health workers are seeing on the ground, and they've had enough.
They signed up to save lives, not to sit back and have to watch people die because they do not have enough resources to give Tasmanians the treatment and care that they need.
Isabella Podwinski, ABC News.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has used a quick trip to Tasmania to inspect a salmon processing factory, insisting he's on the side of aquaculture workers as his government mulls whether to reduce salmon farming in Macquarie Harbour.
Striding into a battle between industry and conservationists. With tensions high over the environmental impacts of salmon farming, the Prime Minister used a flying visit to Tasmania to reassure the sector.
This industry is worth $1 billion. Very vital for Tasmania, vital for Australia, and vital for our national interest.
The potential for a government review of fish farming in Macquarie Harbour, prompted by a decline in endangered Maugean skate numbers, has sparked industry fears operations there could be scaled back or shut down entirely.
You need to work these issues through. We have confidence in the science, and we're very confident that the industry can not only continue but can prosper into the future.
The government does have a decision to make, and as I say, the right decision to make is not to carry on with this job jeopardising, industry threatening review.
Environmentalists also making their voices heard, arguing that the deaths of 2 of the 4 Maugean skates taken into a captive breeding program shows urgent action is needed to improve conditions in Macquarie Harbour.
The sad reality is that you have to get fish farms out of the water. There is no other option to the government.
Public consultation on salmon farming in Macquarie Harbour closes next month. The federal government will then outline the next steps, including whether salmon producers could be forced to pause operations while the review happens.
There's an animal in Macquarie Harbour that is about to go extinct, and his government promised no new extinction, so he needs to act now to save this amazing animal.
A Prime Minister trying to keep an industry on side. Adam Langenberg, ABC News.
Australia's Foreign Minister is in Israel making the case for peace as concerns grow that more countries could be drawn into full-scale war. Penny Wong expressed solidarity with the families of hostages captured by Hamas on the 7th of October. She also promised more aid as a deal was struck to allow medicine to reach those captive in Gaza.
Australia's Foreign Minister visiting the Jewish state and a region in the midst of war to talk with power brokers and to hear from some of those who are suffering, relatives who face the agonising wait for news of their loved ones. Israel says 132 hostages are still being held inside Gaza.
It was incredibly moving, and this 102 days has been just devastating for them, and I'm really grateful for that opportunity. Thank you very much.
Penny Wong is now the most senior Australian official to have visited Israel since the October 7 Hamas attacks. She won't be visiting the southern towns where the massacres occurred, and the families of hostages want her to see their bullet-ridden homes.
I hope that any world leader will come and visit and see it in his own eyes, because that's something no story can describe.
Gaza's health authorities say the massive Israeli response to the Hamas attacks has so far killed 24,200 Palestinians and injured more than 61,000.
While Penny Wong says she has raised the issue of a ceasefire in her Israeli meetings, it's unlikely her trip will contain any diplomatic surprises as she navigates growing hostilities from Israeli and Palestinian supporters both in this region and in Australia.
Penny Wong's next stop in a whirlwind diplomatic tour will be the West Bank, even as war spreads from Gaza's shores to the Red Sea. A US coalition, which includes Australia, using missile diplomacy against the Houthis in Yemen, including fresh strikes on rebel targets today. The Iranian-backed rebels have been busy intensifying attacks on Red Sea shipping and turning this captured container ship into a mobile military parade ground.
We say to our brothers in Palestine, you are not alone. We are here with you until the last drop of our blood.
A standoff growing in the Gulf between war and peace. Allison Horn, ABC News, Jerusalem.
Pakistan has become the third country to be hit by an Iranian attack in the past few days. The reported strike follows attacks on Iraq and Syria as Tehran lashes out following a dual suicide bombing with responsibility claimed by the Islamic State group. The United States has condemned Iran for the missile strikes on Iraq's northern city of Erbil, calling them reckless and imprecise. In response to the attack, Iraq has recalled its ambassador from Tehran. It's been revealed a Sydney man who police say was behind an SMS scam is accused of sending more than 17 million messages in just a week. The 39-year-old appeared in court today and was also charged with using passport and licence information.
Most people have received them. Some fall for them. SMS phishing aims to collect personal or banking information through sham links sent by text designed to look like it's from a legitimate company. And this is what police allege is behind the scenes. A New South Wales cybercrime strike force investigated an alleged phishing scam, and in mid-December they found two of these devices, SIM boxes, at a home in Moorebank. Juan Su is the man police claim sent more than 17 million scam text messages before he was arrested. Many were designed to look like they were from Australia Post and toll company linked. According to court documents, they were sent in just a week. Today, the 39-year-old faced Liverpool local court. Mr. Su, did you send those scam text messages? No plea has been entered.
I need to take further instructions before I can advise my client any further.
Mr. Su was already facing a charge of using equipment connected to a network to commit a serious offence. Today in court, it was revealed he's also been charged with dealing with identity information, which has a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison. According to court documents, the second charge relates to the alleged use of passport and driver's licence information with the intention of committing or facilitating fraud. It's alleged that occurred between September 2022 and the arrest.
Can you stop filming my baby?
Mr. Su remains on bail and his case returns to court in April. Jamie McKinnell, ABC News, Sydney.
A far north Queensland man has been charged with 46 offences, including torture and slavery, over the alleged mistreatment of deckhands in the Gulf of Carpentaria. Police claim the 47-year-old man abused and assaulted workers on his fishing boats while withholding food, water and pay. An illegal firearm was also found on one of the boats. It's claimed the alleged victims, 5 men and a 25-year-old woman, were all from the Cape York area. The police operation was launched last year with complaints dating back to 2020.
And some of those complaints were in such fear of their lives and well-being that they actually died from those boats and swam through crocodile and shark-inhabited waters to the mainland to get off the boat. You have a very real belief that there are others out there that may well be complainants in relation to this individual, and we'd ask them to come forward.
Family, friends and members of the cycling community have gathered to celebrate the life of world champion and Olympian Melissa Hoskins at a funeral in her hometown of Perth. The 32-year-old died after being hit by a car outside her home in Adelaide last month.
A torturous day for family and friends of much-loved champion rider Melissa Hoskins.
She was a world champion, she's a dual Olympian, and she had time for everyone.
During a service in Fremantle, heartbroken family members reflected on the impact that Miss Hoskins, described as a shining light, had had on their lives.
Melissa's zest for life and living touched so many people. At school, it would be of no surprise, sport was her best subject.
A two-time Olympian, Hoskins started competitive cycling in her teens. She went on to be part of the Australian team that won gold at the World Championships in 2015. A mother of 2 young children, her life was cut short when she was hit by a car outside her home in Adelaide. Her husband, fellow champion cyclist Rowan Dennis, charged with causing her death by dangerous driving, was present at today's service.
We ask you to please join us now in a minute of silence.
The tragedy has rocked the cycling community. Competitors paid tribute to the star rider at the recent Tour Down Under women's race in the Adelaide Hills.
She's going to be remembered as someone with a massive smile. She's going to be remembered as a world-class athlete. She's going to be remembered as a great friend to many.
Not just a track rider, she also excelled on the road before retiring from professional cycling in 2017 at just 26.
She was a great team player. Yeah, she was amazing. Yeah, she'll be missed.
A memorial service is planned for Adelaide late next month. Claire Moody, ABC News.
51% of all Australians will go through menopause. But experts say women still face significant barriers to treatment, including stigma, misinformation and a lack of GPs who feel confident enough to prescribe medication. Lauren Roberts explains.
There's no build up to it or anything. It's just all of a sudden you feel like you're on fire.
64-year-old Corrine Pullman struggled with unpleasant perimenopausal symptoms for more than a decade before starting medication.
It's just really an intense feeling of heat.
And she's not the only person struggling during this phase.
About 26% of women aged 45 to 64 had symptoms that were making it hard to do daily activities.
The typical Australian woman reaches menopause at 51 and may experience weight gain, irregular periods, joint pain, difficulty sleeping, tiredness, mood swings, an overactive bladder and vaginal dryness. Experts say more needs to be done to break down stigma surrounding menopause.
I think we need to celebrate the fact that when we get to menopause, we're incredibly wise, we know so much, and we've got a third of our lives to really live a great life in, rather than considering menopause as the end of everything.
Dr Karen McGrath sees patients going through this phase and wants more education for GPs across Australia.
I'd like to see improved education of health professionals at undergraduate level and at postgraduate level, and I'd like to see more emphasis on menopause in GP training.
To minimise symptoms, she recommends that women eat a diet rich with leafy green veggies and calcium, quit smoking, cut down on alcohol and exercise regularly.
Experts say misinformation and predatory marketing on social media still persist, but there are many proven ways to treat symptoms.
It's really important not to, be distracted by these things that are being presented on social media. Go and talk to your doctor and look for things that have an evidence base.
A time of change which experts say we need to talk more about. Lauren Roberts, ABC News, Darwin.
Australian technology companies may have to label content generated by artificial intelligence so people can tell it hasn't been made by humans. The federal government has released its initial plans to regulate AI in response to its rapid rise and spread in use online. The government will work with industry to develop a voluntary standard for AI content to carry labels and digital watermarks so other programs can also tell when something is AI made. The Industry Minister says, if necessary, he's prepared to make content labels mandatory.
While a lot of people want to use the technology for good, there's always going to be someone motivated with ill will, bad intent, and we're going to have to shape our laws accordingly. And so if it does require a more mandatory response, then we will do so.
Fresh from a win in the Iowa caucuses, Donald Trump has turned his attention to New Hampshire. The landslide victory propels him towards a November rematch with US President Joe Biden. But his Republican rivals aren't giving up their fight to stop him from being the party's White House nominee.
After his record victory in Iowa, a quick sprint to New Hampshire. A triumphant Donald Trump campaigning in the next state to have its say on who should be the Republican Party's presidential nominee.
If you think that it was easy to get here tonight, you are wrong. That was...
On the way, Mr. Trump made a quick detour to New York for the start of a second defamation case stemming from E. Jean Carroll's claims he sexually abused her. But Donald Trump has found, and Iowa certainly seems to prove it, that his legal troubles are actually helping his campaign.
Good morning!
Ron DeSantis finished well behind in Iowa, but it was enough to keep alive the Florida governor's floundering campaign.
They threw everything but the kitchen sink at me. Well, guess what? We punched our ticket out of Iowa yesterday.
Nikki Haley was squeezed into third, but the former UN ambassador is polling well in New Hampshire.
I promise you that our best days are yet to come.
After Iowa, there's a real sense here that the race to become GOP nominee is now well and truly on. But that energy might not last long. Unless there's a significant upset, Donald Trump could soon have it all sewn up. Former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson's exit after an embarrassingly bad showing in Iowa won't make a difference. But Vivek Ramaswamy is also out, and his votes could go Trump's way in New Hampshire. Yet another potential boost in his seemingly unstoppable campaign. Barbara Miller, ABC News.
Beijing is calling for a resumption of military cooperation with Australia, while suggesting a Japanese warship was responsible for a sonar attack on Australian Navy personnel last year. China's ambassador has made the claim, while also warning the Albanese government against cooperation with Taiwan. His defence correspondent, Andrew Green.
Welcome, His Excellency.
Back from a Beijing break and toasting a new year of diplomatic dialogue with a glass of local red.
To the friendship between China and Australia, cheers.
Australian wine still subjected to crippling trade sanctions, which he hopes will soon end.
I hope that in the new year, the relations between China and Australia will see sustained, sound and steady development.
This year, the ambassador also wants a resumption of defence cooperation. China continues to insist one of its warships did not fire an undersea sonar last year, which injured Australian divers in international waters. Now, a startling new claim suggesting Japan may be to blame.
A third country boat nearby, whether or not there was sonar from the other side, other party, we're not sure.
We made strong representations to China about this incident, and we stand by the representations that we made.
In the new Chinese Year of the Dragon, the ambassador's signalling a far less fierce approach to Australia. But as always, the topic of Taiwan's causing friction. And in coming days, he's demanding meetings with foreign affairs officials to discuss this country's position. China's particularly furious at the Albanese government's recent public statements congratulating Taiwan on its presidential elections.
We are strongly opposed to such a statement.
But he's denied his government offered a bribe to the tiny Pacific nation of Nauru, who this week switched diplomatic allegiances from Taiwan to Beijing. Andrew Green, ABC News, Canberra.
China's population has shrunk for a second straight year. Here's David Chow with finance.
Our biggest trading partner has given an update on how its economy is going, and it's a mixed bag. China's economy grew by 5.2% in the year to December, and while this meets the Chinese government's growth target, surprise, surprise, it's one of China's weakest economic updates in decades, apart from that huge downturn during the COVID years, which was then followed by a hefty, prolonged slump in its property market. Now, China's future isn't looking very young or sprightly. Although China scrapped its one-child policy years ago, its population is shrinking rapidly. Last year, 11 million people died in China, while only 9 million babies were born. This ageing population isn't great for China's economy, and it's not great for ours either. Meanwhile, it was another bad day for the All Ords, which slipped by 1/3% to its lowest level in a month. Evolution mining plunged by more than 17% after it gave a weak trading update, and other mining stocks also fell. This comes after a sizable drop in gold and oil prices, while iron ore bounced back a little from its recent sell-off. And it's been pretty rough for the Aussie dollar, which in 2 weeks has dropped from 68 to 65.6 US cents. And it's mainly because the US greenback has gotten stronger, after a senior official from the US Federal Reserve told markets to basically get real and not expect rapid interest rate cuts this year. And finally, with the exception of Japan, it was pretty much red wherever you looked in global markets, with Hong Kong being the worst performer. And that's finance.
A 16-year-old was the first player into the Australian Open's third round, with Russia's Mira Andreeva producing one of the tournament's major upsets. Australian qualifier Storm Hunter is also through, along with a ruthless Alex de Minaur.
As the rain arrived at Melbourne Park, the Demon shone under the bright lights of Rod Laver.
Oh, that's beautiful.
The world number 10 steamrolling Italian Matteo Arnoldi, dropping just 6 games.
And it's a demolition by the Demon.
I thought I just had to be solid here, use the crowd, try to stay focused, and I'm very happy to get the win today.
A second Aussie soon joined him in the third round, the world's top-ranked doubles player who had to qualify for the main draw.
Hunter storms into the third round.
This doesn't happen every day, so I'm super excited and enjoy it with you guys. I love playing in front of you.
Earlier, a star was born, Russian teenager Mira Andreeva, stunning 6-seed Ons Jabeur in 54 minutes.
And that will do it. What a performance from the 16-year-old. Has defeated her idol in straight sets.
It's her first top 10 win and her first match back on Rod Laver since finishing as runner-up in last year's Junior Girls Oz Open final.
I just feel like I am a bit more mature than I was before.
You're only 16.
Well, that's true, but last year I was 15, and so...
Last night, Isla Tomjanovic staged a fight back for the ages.
There's the break.
Down 4-1 and a double break to Croatian Petra Marcic, she rallied, reeling off 5 straight games to win the marathon standoff in just under 3 hours. 12 months ago, the 30-year-old went under the knife for a knee injury.
Tonight was just a huge kind of reward that feels amazing because you don't know every time when you're coming back from surgery if you'll come back. It's a gamble in a way.
Jessica Stewart, ABC News.
West Indies debutant Shamar Joseph has made a dream start to his career, removing Steve Smith for 12 with his first ball in Test cricket. Earlier, Pat Cummins and Josh Hazlewood took 4 wickets each as Australia bowled out the West Indies for 188 on day 1 of the first Test in Adelaide.
Steve Smith was made to wait in his first match as opening batsman. Pat Cummins surprisingly sending the visitors in to bat. That decision paid off, the captain finding a breakthrough in his very first over.
Slightly for Lewin taken. Cameron Green, that's why he's there.
The skipper struck again in the first hour before Josh Hazlewood's 250th Test wicket put the home side well on top.
Well, he's misjudged that one badly.
The West Indies dug in after lunch, debutant Kavem Hodge showing patience. His innings came to an abrupt end on 12, as Hazlewood picked up another.
Gone, just like that.
Kirk Mackenzie scored his first half-century in Test cricket before falling the very next over.
Hazlewood is having a day out here in Adelaide.
Hazlewood and Cummins with 4 wickets each before a late surge frustrated Australia's attack. Debutant Shamar Joseph and Kemar Roach putting on a 55-run partnership for the final wicket.
Oh, that's close. That's really close. It's been given.
Steve Smith entered the field for his first bat as an opener, but Joseph's dream start continued, removing the veteran with his very first delivery.
Beautifully done. First ball, first wicket. What a start.
Marnus Labuschagne the next to go, Joseph with 2 key wickets for the visitors.
And possibly could be involved. Yes, a plan has worked. He's done it again.
Australia 2 down, but still on top, ahead of day 2. Cameron Slessor, ABC News.
To the weather, and this cushion plant in the Central Plateau was photographed by Lucy Hawthorne. Warm and wet was the story of the day, although the northeast mostly stayed fine. Flinders Island topped the state with 25 degrees. It was 24 in St Helens and Swansea. Launceston reached 22. Hobart and Burnie both had 21. The SES responded to 15 requests for help. 13 of those were in the northwest. Sheffield had 66 millimetres of rain all this morning. These figures are to 9 a.m. Devonport actually had 41 because it kept raining. Launceston had 30 millimetres, Cressy 41. The rain reached the southeast a little later in the morning. Hobart finished with 16 millimetres. The satellite image shows the swirling low pressure system that brought the rain to Tasmania and Victoria, forcing the Australian Open indoors. Tomorrow the low will continue to affect our weather, bringing showers to much of the state. Across the country tomorrow, more showers for the Queensland coast. The chance of a shower in Sydney, fine in the other capitals. A windy 21 might affect the players' ball toss at the Australian Open. Perfect weather for the cricket in Adelaide. Back home, there'll be showers in the west, extending to most areas during the day before contracting to the west and south tomorrow night. More thunderstorms are possible. Another 10 to 30 millimetres is forecast about the west, likely to be up to 5 or 6 millimetres for the rest of the state. 19 degrees in Launceston and Devonport, 17 in Burnie, Smithton and Strawn. 21 in Swansea and Orford, 20 for St Helens and Ouse, and Hobart can expect between 2 2 and 9 millimetres of rain with a top temperature of 20 degrees. Sunrise tomorrow will be at 8 minutes to 6. On coastal waters, there'll be west to northwesterly winds of 15 to 25 knots, reaching up to 35 knots across the north. There are gale warnings from Sandy Cape to the east of Flinders Island and strong wind warnings for Bank Strait, the upper east and the central west. Friday will be mostly fine with some showers about the west and south. Saturday should be fine apart from isolated showers developing in the northeast. And looking ahead, Sunday will be mostly fine with showers returning next week. And that's it for this evening's program. Up next is Laura Tingle with 7:30. See you tomorrow.